Breaking the portrait rules with a Dutch tilt is our topic today on our coffee break. Let's see what we can accomplish in 10 minutes or less, starting now. Hello, everyone. Glad you could join us. Now, our topic today is going to be on breaking the rules using the Dutch tilt. Now, the Dutch tilt is one of those artistic choices when you're photographing. Either you love it or you don't. So the general rule is this: always learn the rules like a pro so you can go back and break them as an artist. And that's what the Dutch tilt is going to do for us. Now, originally the Dutch tilt, let me show you here, this was actually designed way back in the early film days, and it was a German filmmaker. Let me get to the bottom here. It was a German filmmaker who came up with the Dutch tilt, and then throughout the years, it evolved. And if you go back to the old Batman and Robin movies back, or TV show back in the 60s, you'll see they used the Dutch tilt a lot. Alfred Hitchcock used it in The Birds. So it's supposed to represent uncertainty, a sense of like urgency, just chaotic mess. That's what the Dutch tilt was designed for. But sometimes when we do it with portraits, we can really make the portrait just stand out and make it jump. All right. So let me get to that. So here we are right here. Now, if you notice these were shot way back in 2011. Wow. All right. So what, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, whatever, many years ago. So it was shot several years ago, and I remember experimenting with it. So look at the difference. So here he is on a slight angle. So he's standing straight. You just tilt the angle or the camera at a certain angle, and that's what's producing the Dutch tilt. Let me show you. I know I had some straight. I'll come back down this way. So, and actually, this is going to be the image we're going to use right here to work with. In fact, you know what? I'm going to start with this image. So here's the image we're going to start with. This is Blake. It was for his senior portraits. And I purposely had him give the attitude of like, you know what? Don't mess with me. So his whole, if you saw the kid, I mean, he's laughing throughout the series. Here, I wanted that real serious look. Like, you know what? I'm not quite sure of what my future is going to be after I graduate. So that's the theory and concept I did with him here. Here's an edit. Now let me go to the crop tool. And once it comes up, let's see, crop. Now what I'll do is I'll try to crop it. Yeah, this is moving a little bit slow. Just one moment. Yeah, it's freezing up on me. Just 1 second here. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you how we crop the image. And by by rotating the image, you can actually see, here it is. So this is what I saw in the camera. Let's get to it right here. There we go. So this is what I originally saw. So you see how he's on a slight angle, and look at the building. Let me commit the change. So one moment here. We got it. And there we go. All right. So there it is. So there it is. So from a photography standpoint, this right here is proper composition. The horizontal line, the horizon rather, is straight. Here it is. This is what it should look like. All right, if we follow the rules. However, we're in an alleyway, for God's sake. We're in an alleyway. It's all grungy behind him. He looks fresh and good. So let me go back to where I had it. Right about there. And actually, can I reset? Yeah, I can reset it. There, I reset it. So, but look at the difference on what we just did there. So instead, we took the image and he stood, you saw the way he was standing, and all I did was slightly turned the camera. Now he's looking straight up. The background is looking at a slight angle. Once again, there he is, a senior in high school, graduating, future's uncertain. I just wanted that cool look. And again, this is something he liked, but it's not for everyone's taste. All right, so this isn't something everyone is going to fall in love with. All right. Now, this is an overboard, right? That definitely is too much of a tilt. All right, this one worked out pretty good here. Give it a second to render. And so you can definitely see to where he, like I said, he's straight. I'm just turning the camera on a slight angle. All right. And let me get to some of the other ones for you. Good. And then I'm just breezing through the bottom so you can see the entire set. This was done late at night in a dark alley, well, not late at night, but in a dark alleyway. And he was lit with one flash. All right. I'm sorry. Let me just see if I can get down the, I'm going to make these smaller so you can see. There we go. Wow, I took a lot of, here we go. And then these were strangers watching. I know, these were just quick experimental shots. So you get the shots you want first out of the way, then you experiment and become creative. All right. So again, here's that Dutch tilt versus kind of a straight boring shot like this. All right. So we're done with that. So let me come in here and do a quick search on, well, I'll do it this way. We'll come up here. I'm going to select the photo, the images that I edited. There we are. All right. So let's take, let's take this image here, and I'll walk you through a real quick edit. So we'll see the before and after. And coming over to edit. Now under the edit tab right here, as you can see all of the changes that were made to this image. And up on top, you'll see there were 8 changes that were made. So starting with a raw develop tool, and then I worked my way up on doing the edits. So let me get to this here. There we go. All right. So here's where we're going to start. Now let's see if I can show you without it. Well, actually, I can right here. All right. So this is the original image straight out of the camera. So I had to balance the alleyway light with the flash I was using. Now what I'm going to do is choose the correct profile. And for this, it was a Nikon D700 camera, and I like the portrait profile. I just upped the smart contrast a bit, boosted up the shadows a little, and then, of course, enhanced the black tones. All right, so that's what we did with Develop. Now onto the skin, using the portrait tools. So let me start at this point here. I'm going to discard the edits. There we go. And we'll quickly start. Develop tool, here it is. I like those settings, I'll accept them. We already explained that. And now let's get down to the portrait tools. And with the portrait tools, we'll start with face. Now, look at this spot right up here, it's killing me. And yeah, I am a little embarrassed showing you some of these old photos. Look how horrible that shine is, right there. Now, whose fault is that? The photographer, mine. The light was too far away. You can see the light in his eye. I used a beauty dish, so I could have diffused the light a little bit more, and then most importantly, it was getting a little hot in the alleyway. Had I have tethered this to a computer, I would have spot that right away. Thankfully, we're going to fix it with Luminar. So here's that shine removal. Watch this. I'm going to take it all the way to 100, and it does a really good job at getting rid of that. I'm going to soften the skin a little bit more. Great. Let's come back up to the face again. I don't need to add more light to the face, but for the eyes, I do want to take or down here, I do want to remove some of the dark patches under his eyes, and I want to add a little more enhancement to the eyes, but not to the point where it looks fake. So let's bring it up a bit, and look how that's making his eyes come to life. Iris flare, and what that's going to do is add a little catch light underneath his eye. Now, one thing to notice, look at that little dot right there in the middle of his pupil. Just that one little dot, I hope you can see it. What's that telling me is back then, I used the top on-camera flash to trigger my light. Instead of getting an actual trigger, a wireless trigger to make the light flash, I used that. Now, it didn't add to the exposure. All it did was trigger the light, but that little black dot in the middle is killing me because it shows that I used that flash, and now it gave an extra drop of light somewhere I didn't want it. All right, so that looks good. Improve the eyebrows. All right. Now, here's what's really incredible about Neo. That still needs more work. So I could add a second instance of skin. And we're going to do that. We're going to come back to the shine removal. And I'm going to give it a generous amount. Let's see if it made a difference. Before, give it a second. And a little bit, but not a whole lot. But still, it's better than it was. Now, I am noticing that there's digital noise in this scene. So let's come up here to denoise. And I'm going to slowly bring it over. Give it a second to render. Good, and we got rid of that noise. All right, good. So here we are. Let's see our progress. Before, after. All right, it's looking really good. And honestly, we could just finish it off with a beautiful vignette. I'm going to choose him. And then take the amount slider and bring it over along with the size. That's a little too much, but that's okay. We'll come back. Dial back that. Maybe move it over a little bit this way. There we go. Narrow down the size, and we'll drop just a little inner light to make him glow. Let's feather it more to make it more natural. There we are. Now let's see if that makes a difference. So the goal of that vignette was to draw attention to the subject. So let's see if it did. Here's before. Boom, there it is after. Good. So now the attention was drawn to him. All right, so there we have it. Using the Dutch tilt and just what? Maybe 2 minutes inside Luminar, we were able to go from this to here, got rid of that shine on his forehead, and now we're set with a pleasing photo that he and his family loved for their senior portraits. All right? So let me open it up for three quick questions. So if you could raise your hand if you have a question on this. Simon, as a portrait photographer, fire away. Unmute.
I've got to be honest. I'm not a huge fan of the Dutch angle, but I must admit, I do like the portrait. It is actually a beautiful portrait, and I preferred it when the background was, when you first put the vignette on. I would have made it a little bit darker just to emphasize him, but it's a really nice portrait of him, and it just makes him, it's kind of real. Do you know what I mean? It's not posed, it's real.
Exactly. It's not, and I hate to use the word cheesy, but it's not that cheesy senior portrait. It's like, hi, look at me. Right. Because a senior portrait is supposed to represent the person at that time in their life. So at that particular time in their life as a senior, what were you into back then? And so years from now, when they show these pictures to their kids and other people, they can actually show, hey, look, this is what I was into. He was into, which I had other photos of him in a band and doing things like that. But you also want something to show a representative of him, a snapshot of what he looks like at that time in his life. His family loved it. Now, you're right. If the family didn't like the Dutch tilt because this was a paid shoot, then I would say, okay, well, here it is straight. And then we did it, that way. But as an artist, if this were for me entering a contest or whatever, then whatever I feel should be what the image should look like. But again, if you're doing it for a client, give the client what they want. Listen to what the client wants, but give them what they need. And if they didn't like it, then you don't give it to them. If they love the Dutch tilt, then of course apply it. All right, Phil, and then we'll do Nick. Phil?
Unmute,
At
Phil.
what point? Yeah, I did that. Yeah, at what angle is it a Dutch tilt? And then beyond that, it's no longer a Dutch tilt. It's just a cut by fade.
So Phil is asking, at what point is it a Dutch tilt? And at what point is it just a screw up? And you messed up. So that's, again, you saw some of the other ones I did where you could definitely tell I went overboard. It didn't look right. So when it doesn't look right to you, then you know it's no longer the Dutch tilt. But typically not a 45 degree, not a 90 degree here, 180 rather. So you're not going, at a 90 degree here, you're just gradually twist. And then just a slight, ever so slight, here it is, here. And when you take that shot, you'll feel it in the camera. If it's too much, like this, then you can definitely tell, that just doesn't look right. And of course, you can fix it afterwards, but why? Fix it in camera. Now, you brought up a good point before also is bird photographers, sometimes a Dutch tilt will work when you want to get the bird looking off-tilted, but if you have the ocean in the background, then the ocean is on an angle like this falling out of the frame. A lot of times that doesn't look as pleasing. So for portraits, you can get away with it. Some landscape stuff, you can get away with it. When there's water involved, it's kind of that touchy situation. It could work or it couldn't work. All right. So Nick.
Okay, kind of a two-pronged question. First one is very similar to Phil's. I just want to know, when you do use that, are you normally in the 10 to 20 degree angle of a tilt? And the second part is, if you know you're going to go for a Dutch tilt, do you try to position your subject so that he is going the opposite way, so that when you tilt the background, he is more vertical?
Perfect example. Okay, great. So the first one is how much of a tilt do you do? We already answered that. You get to do by feel. The second one is, I wish I had to show it to you. The photo I did of the aviator of Erica, she was not leaning in like I wanted. I was like, oh my God. And keep in mind, we were photographed on a pure white background, so it didn't matter if I did any of the tilting. It just shifted her. She wasn't leaning the way I wanted. So I just took the camera I made her look like she was leaning. Some of the pictures I did of the little girl and her grandfather, they were straight up and down. By tilting it, it looks like she's leaning onto him and he's her support. So in a case like this, yes, you have to decide how the person is standing. Like if they're completely straight up and down, you do that Dutch tilt, they're going to look like they're on an angle. If they're already on an angle and you do the Dutch tilt, then it's going to amplify what they're actually doing. So again, it's one of those creative moments to where you have to decide where are they in this shot. Maybe the Dutch angle will work, maybe it won't work. But that's like what I said in the very beginning, learn the rules like a pro. So later on, you could break them as an artist. So once again, the best thing to do is experiment. And this is great for still life because still life doesn't talk back to you and still life doesn't move all over the place. So set something up, do a little still life shoot and practice that Dutch angle and just see how much of the camera do I really have to turn. Now, me personally, I notice I always tilt to the left. I seldom go to the right. So for me personally, like I said, you'll notice mine usually goes from the top corner, the right corner, and it fades down to the left corner on that tilt. That's just what I feel comfortable doing. All right?
Like your preference is you do the tilt to the left versus to the right. So
Exactly.
that's personal preference.
Exactly. Pure personal. And I'll do one more, Thomas, and then we have to end the session.
I don't know if I got it right, but I think you choose the skin tool 2 times, right?
Yes.
Why didn't you use the masking tool in the second time? Because you want to make some changes at the forehead. Why didn't
Good.
you use the masking tool?
So I did because I didn't need it. So all I did on the second instance of the skin retouching, I didn't do any of the skin retouch. I didn't smooth the skin the second time. All I did was remove the highlights. And since it's AI, it detected where the highlights were. You know, the skin shine rather, not the highlights. The skin shine. So the rest of the skin was fine. So I didn't have to touch that. I just wanted to mess with that particular shine. And it did a really, really good job with it. In the past, I would have to create layers on top of layers on top of layers, drag and drop them. Now, second reason why I didn't use a mask, you saw that I photographed 100 and let's say 34 images. Well, if in this set there were 10 of them, let's say, 10 of them that were identical and they all had that skin shine, now I can apply a batch process. So by not using a layered mask and by letting AI help me figure out where that skin shine was, now I can do a batch processing and save time and process all of them. Now, and then go back later, and if, for quality control, some of them still didn't meet your standards, that's when you can go back in, try it for a third time, and if it affected, which it wouldn't, but if it affected the other areas of the face, then you'd go back in and mask it in or mask it out. All right? Well, thanks. All right, guys. So thank you so much for joining us. Here we go. Thank you so much for joining us on this coffee break. Please stick around for the Ask Me Anything segment where we'll answer more questions either on the Dutch tilt or any question pertaining to photography, editing, what's going on in the industry. So any question whatsoever. Well, thanks for joining us, and I'll see you at the next coffee break.